The quiet of Oak Haven Trace shattered that morning, not with an alarm clock, but with a sound of pure, unadulterated audacity. I'm talking about the sight of a gleaming obsidian black Porsche Cayenne parked sideways across my entire two-car garage. A brazen, automotive middle finger aimed directly at my front door. Look, living in an HOA community like Oak Haven for 2 decades, you learn to tolerate the minor irritations, the beige-only paint rule, the passive-aggressive newsletters, but you also learn the difference between irritating and tyrannical. And our HOA queen, Brenda Blackstone, she was pure tyranny with a penchant for expensive athleisure wear. Brenda didn't just enforce rules, she weaponized them, and her primary target for the last 2 years, my 2 ancient, sprawling English rose bushes. She called them unregulated chaos, claiming they violated the uniform aesthetic standards of the subdivision. I told her politely that those roses had been drinking sunlight on that exact spot since before she traded her Honda Civic for that Porsche. But Brenda, well, her mantra was simple. Compliance, Mr. Harrison. Or consequences will follow, consequences. That's why when I stepped out with my morning coffee, I found her $90,000 SUV sprawled across my property line, blocking me in with the precision of a trained military operative. And there it was, under my windshield wiper. A crisp white note, laminated no less, printed in an aggressive serif font. It didn't threaten. It declared, "Consider this property liened until the flora violation is permanently rectified. No one bypasses the covenant of Oak Haven. Regards, President Blackstone." I nearly dropped my mug, honestly. This woman, she had immobilized my entire life, my commute, my business, my freedom over a couple of bushes. By mid-morning, the entire cul-de-sac was buzzing. Old Mrs. Albright was out with binoculars, and the Peterson boys were filming it all on their phones like it was a live sports event. I walked over, calm as a glacier, and knocked lightly on the Porsche's window. Just a formality. Brenda marched out of her house moments later, sunglasses perched, clipboard clutched like the Constitution. "Morning, Brenda," I said, my voice dangerously low. "Would you mind moving your fortress off my property? I have a delivery to make." She simply smirked, a truly venomous, self-satisfied twist of the lips. "I'm afraid that's not possible, Alex. This is a sanctioned enforcement measure. Until your yard meets regulation height, your access is, shall we say, suspended." I tried the police. They sighed. "Civil matter, sir. Call a tow." I called the tow companies. That's when I hit the brick wall. Brenda had spent the last 6 months rewriting the community contract, consolidating all local towing services under the HOA's exclusive command. They wouldn't touch her Porsche even if I offered to buy the company. She thought she was untouchable. She had created a legal, contractual fortress, and her black Cayenne was the battle standard planted firmly on my defeat. For 2 days, that car sat there, a monument to her arrogance. I was being humiliated publicly, confined like a child put in time out. That's when the gears started turning. I run a specialized hauling and rigging company, cranes, heavy equipment, industrial moving. I deal with structural problems, legal loopholes, and massive physics every single day. If Brenda thought she could weaponize a tow contract, I was about to show her what happens when you try to win a structural engineering problem with a clipboard. It wasn't about the roses anymore. It was about power. Her proving she could crush dissent, and me proving that when the rules are rigged, the only option is to change the game entirely. I pulled out my phone and scrolled past the usual contacts until I found the right name. Captain Leo Winch Maxwell, an old Navy buddy, now running a private commercial helicopter lift service. "Winch," I said, "you still got those choppers that can lift a small house?" His laugh crackled over the line. "Depends, Alex. You building or tearing down?" "Neither," I said, a slow smile spreading across my face. "I need you to move a very expensive Porsche. And I need the drop zone to be spectacular." Winch loved it. He just heard illegal blockade and high-altitude solution, and he was on board. We spent the next 48 hours getting the legal ducks in a row. My lawyer friend confirmed that since I had documented the trespassing and formally requested the vehicle's removal, I had the right to hire any service I wanted. The law didn't specify how the vehicle had to be removed, only that the means had to be reasonable. Now for the drop zone. Brenda wasn't the true head of the snake. That honor belonged to Mayor George Fenton. He and Brenda were tight. She funneled huge campaign dollars his way, and he kept the city regulatory eyes firmly shut on her little Oak Haven kingdom. He was having a highly publicized, politically sensitive fundraiser brunch that Saturday morning on his sprawling, pristine estate lawn. The message had to be delivered to the source of the problem. I played the role of the defeated man perfectly for 2 more days. I even watered the damn roses right in front of Brenda's windshield, just to twist the knife of her impending victory. "Well, Brenda," I told her one evening, feigning resignation, "looks like you win. I'll call a landscaper Monday. Your point is made." She beamed, truly basking in her moment of triumph, not realizing she was standing next to her own Trojan horse. Saturday, 8:58 a.m. I was sipping my coffee, just as I'd been every morning. Brenda was holding court on her lawn, giving a dramatic, clipboard-wielding lecture to 3 nervous neighbors about the exact hue of their trash cans. Then the sound, a low rhythmic thump-thump-thump from the distance. Heads started turning. Brenda paused, frowning as if an air intrusion violated her HOA charter. The sound grew, louder, closer, until a massive black commercial helicopter, the kind they use for logging and setting roof beams, crested the oak line. It was enormous, its rotor wash immediately whipping the street into a frenzy, sending napkins, leaves, and Brenda's expensive straw sun hat flying. She started screaming, "What is this? This is a residential." But her voice was swallowed by the pure, thunderous roar of the engines. Winch's team rappelled down like a special forces unit. They were fast, efficient, and didn't even glance at the hysterical woman in the silk robe. In seconds, heavy-duty chains were wrapped, cinched, and locked around the Porsche's chassis. The entire street was silent, except for the roar and the rapid-fire clicking of phone cameras. Brenda finally realized what was happening, and her shriek, a truly primal sound, cut through the noise. "Stop, that is my car." "I am the president." "You cannot do this." She ran forward, tripping over the curb, flailing her arms at a $90,000 car that was already a foot off the asphalt. The Porsche lifted, slowly, majestically, tires leaving the pavement with a slight squeal. It rose higher, swaying slightly, gleaming black against the blue sky, dangling beneath the chopper like a ridiculous, expensive Christmas ornament. The cul-de-sac exploded in cheers, whistles, and cathartic laughter. I stood on my porch, took a sip of my coffee, and gave Brenda a casual, almost bored wave. As the helicopter banked, flying the Porsche toward the city center, everyone assumed it was headed to a tow yard. They had no idea. 30 minutes later, the footage hit the Oak Haven group chat. The helicopter descended directly onto Mayor Fenton's lawn, right in the middle of his brunch. The guests, council members, donors, lobbyists, scattered in panic as the Porsche was lowered with surgical precision onto the emerald green turf. It landed with a heavy thud, flattening a patch of grass that probably cost more than my annual salary. The fallout was nuclear. The mayor's lawn Porsche meme launched instantly. Mayor Fenton, furious that his political elite had been humiliated, immediately issued a statement condemning Brenda's reckless and unlawful use of HOA authority, fined her personally for the property damage, and finally pulled his political support. Brenda's foundation of power, the contract, the mayor, the fear, it all crumbled instantly. That Monday at the HOA meeting, the board, emboldened by public opinion and the sheer cinematic spectacle, voted 4-1 to remove Brenda Blackstone from her post. She tried to fight back, screaming about domestic terrorism, but her words were meaningless. The sight of her black Porsche, airborne and vanquished, had permanently redefined her as a tyrant who pushed too far. She sold the car a month later. By the end of the year, she sold the house and was gone. I look at those English roses now, still sprawling, still beautiful. I trimmed them a little last week just because I felt like it. The real victory wasn't the car or the memes, or even getting my driveway back. The real victory was showing the entire community that tyranny, even petty suburban tyranny, only thrives when good people stay silent. When you decide to fight back with creativity and a little bit of high-altitude spectacle, you don't just win a battle, you free a community. So tell me, what's the absolute worst, most absurd HOA or neighborhood violation you've ever witnessed? And if you had the power of a commercial helicopter, where would you drop the symbol of your local tyrant's power? Drop your story in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe because trust me, even in Oak Haven, the drama always finds a way to take flight.